This isn't just a new Kia vehicle, it's the beginning of a whole new Kia, and one that will usher in a new era of exciting electric powertrains and higher prices. Meet the new Kia EV6. It's exciting, it's new, and there's already a waiting list as long as you're armed for it in Australia. So let's not waste time, let's go figure out exactly what we're dealing with here. We're going to be covering everything here, from price and features to design, practicality to safety, ownership, what it's like to drive, efficiency, and of course that awesome EV powertrain. And if you want to jump ahead at any point, feel free to use the time codes, but otherwise strap in and join me for the full EV adventure. Got it? Right, so hit subscribe, throw us a like if you're in the mood, and let's get moving.
Okay, so the EV6 isn't cheap. You can get into a Polestar 2 for less money or a Tesla Model 3. But Kia says the pricing here has been more closely modelled on what is expected from the Tesla Model Y, the car it sees, along with the Hyundai Ioniq 5 of course, as its key competitor. The EV6 arrives in Australia in two trim levels, the entry-level single-motor Air and the GT line, which can be had in single-motor rear-wheel drive or twin-motor all-wheel drive, and all share the same battery and platform, but offer differing levels of performance and range. The Air rides on 19-inch alloys, gets LED headlights and tail lights, flush-fitting door handles and power folding mirrors. In the cabin, you'll find part vegan leather seats, LED interior lighting, and a clever V2L power point that helps keep devices topped up. Onboard tech is handled by twin 12.3-inch curved displays, and there's dual-zone climate, onboard navigation, wireless phone charging, and USB charging for your devices. Step up to the EV6 GT line and you'll get bigger 20-inch alloys, a GT line body kit, and an external V2L power point that matches the one already in the cabin. The seats are trimmed in suede and vegan leather, and you get active sound design that allows you to dial up or down the driving soundtrack. You then add an augmented reality head-up display, a 14-speaker Meridian sound system, a heated steering wheel and heated and ventilated front seats, which also have a leaned-back relaxation mode for when you're recharging. Kia also homologated a smaller, which means cheaper, battery version of the EV6 for Australia, but with the brand holding some 25,000 registrations of interest, and with only about 500 vehicles to be delivered this year, there's little chance of them adding it anytime soon. If you want an EV6 now, then it'll be one of these. The EV6 is destined to be constantly compared to the Ioniq 5, but which one looks better is a matter entirely for you. One thing is certain though, the two sure look different.
Believe it or not, the Kia EV6 is actually classified as a large SUV because of its size, but it doesn't really look like a large SUV, does it? In fact, it doesn't really look like a Kia either. And I gotta say, I'm a fan of its look. It's kind of got this boxiness and this aerodynamic profile all at the same time. I'm a big fan of these big 20-inch alloy wheels with this sort of two-tone arrangement. I love its kind of swooping roofline, and I particularly like these cool hidden door handles. And there's even cooler stuff inside. So jump in and we'll take a look. Now, it's fair to say that this isn't your typical Kia cabin, and I gotta say, I reckon it mostly works really well. I absolutely love this twin screen setup. They're big, they're clear, they're really easy to use. I think this little strip of controls here is both clever and really modern feeling. You can swap it from navigation and audio controls to aircon, which means you can still use the dials for aircon, or you can use them for volume or changing stations, all without bothering the big screen. So there are still shortcuts to get to the things you use the most often. The use of the eco materials is really nice as well. I like the new look steering wheel, and the seats are really comfy and supportive too, and recline all the way back in sleep mode. But there are a couple of sort of interesting quirks here as well. One of them is the fact that there's 3 USB ports, 2 USB-Cs, and one is the traditional fat plug, and yet only the fat plug operates the Apple CarPlay. Without it, you're locked out, as there's no wireless Apple CarPlay either. So there's a couple of not so modern quirks in an otherwise really modern feeling cabin.
The EV6 is a sizable beast thanks to the Hyundai Group's eGMP platform, which is good news for cabin space.
Now, do you remember earlier when I said the Kia EV6 was classified as a large SUV? Now, that's a calculation based purely on a vehicle's length and width. It's pretty obvious here in the back seat. So I'm sitting behind my own 175 centimetre driving position, and as you can see, there is miles of space between my knees and the seat in front. Although to be fair, headroom could feel a little tight if you're much taller than me. Now, the other good news is that you can genuinely fit 3 people across the back row here because there's no tunnel getting in the way, which means extra space for their legs. Now, the other cool thing back here is that you can charge absolutely everything. So for example, if you have a laptop that demands to be plugged in like mine does, you simply plug it into the conventional plug down there, plug it into your laptop, and away you go. Now, if you want to charge your phone, each of these seats has a little USB port in the side of them, which plugs in there and plugs in there, ensuring you are pretty much always topped up. Now, there's actually another one of these plugs on the outside of the vehicle, so you can power stuff outside of the car, like if you're camping. Now, it's also got all the other Practicality stuff covered as well. There's 2 cup holders up front, 2 more in this pull-down divider. There's bottle holders in each of the doors, although a bottle is just about all you'll get in these ones, and 2 ISOFIX attachment points in each window seat.
Step around to the boot and you'll find a wide space that will swallow between 480 and 490 litres of cargo, depending on your trim level. It's joined by a frunk, or fruit maybe in Australia, storage space under the bonnet that will store another 52 litres in rear drive variants or 20 litres in the twin motor GT line. More numbers? Kia reckons the EV6 will tow 1600 kilograms braked and 750 kilograms unbraked with a 100 kilogram downball. Cleverly, the EV6 will automatically detect the weight of the trailer and then adjust your range estimates accordingly.
Now, the EV6's engine is, of course, not here. This rides on the brand's EGMP platform, which means most of the important stuff is actually under the bodywork. Now, in the entry-level Air or the GT line rear-wheel drive, both of which just get a single motor at the back, you do get a bigger frunk, or I guess in Australia you might call it a fruit. But in this, the GT line all-wheel drive, which gets twin motors, one at the front, one at the rear, you sacrifice that extra space for a lot more power, and that makes this model in particular properly quick.
All EV6 models are equipped with an 800 volt architecture and a 77.4 kilowatt hour battery, but you can have more power and less range, or less power and more range. It's up to you. The Air will travel the furthest at a claimed 528 kilometers between charges. Interestingly, the GT line rear-wheel drive shares the same battery and motor, but will travel 24 kilometers less at 504 kilometers. Finally, the GT line all-wheel drive will travel 484 kilometers between charges. And when it does come time to plug in, Kia reckons a 50 kilowatt charger will take you from 10 to 80% in around 1 hour and 13 minutes. A 350 kilowatt charger will do the same in around 18 minutes. And using an at-home wall box will take you to full in around 11 hours.
So it sounds almost boring to say now that there are so many EVs on sale in Australia, but I guess the thing that first strikes you about the EV6 drive experience is how familiar it really is. I mean, yes, the car looks very different from the outside. It certainly looks different on the inside, but from behind the wheel, it's really pretty easy to forget you're driving an EV at all. It just drives like any other Kia or any other car. So I guess what that means is if you're still nervous about making the EV switch, there's really nothing new to learn here. It just kind of feels like you're cruising around in any old car, to be honest. But there are some perks to EV ownership which only really present themselves when you plant your right foot. Now, we've spent plenty of time today in the single motor rear wheel drive versions, that's both the Air and the GT line, and in the all-wheel drive GT line. And there's no doubt that the all-wheel drive twin motor version feels far more urgent and far more potent than the other models. But to be perfectly honest with you, I maintain that for most people, most of the time, the Air or the rear wheel drive GT line, the single motor, will be really all the power you'll ever need, and you'll get to maximize your range as a benefit. When you go to twin motor, you use more power, and as such, you get a shorter range. So power or range, that's kind of the question of the EV6 family. And I got to say, having spent a fair bit of time in the EV6 all-wheel drive twin motor today, it produces plenty of power. It is properly urgent. It's not lightning fast, like, you know, there's no crazy ludicrous modes or anything like that, but there is no shortage of power on tap when you plant your right foot. And we took in some really twisty roads, actually. And I got to say, the way this car hides its sort of circa 2-ton weight, its fairly sizable dimensions, is really impressive. In fact, at times it's almost too impressive. You forget just how short the gap between corners really is in a car this urgent. When you plant your right foot, of course, all the power arrives all at once, and you can find yourself barreling into a bend a little bit faster than you might have expected. And it's times like that that the weight does start to show itself just a little bit. But generally speaking, it is really proficient, both as a road car and as a sort of semi-performance car. The other thing is that it is fairly quiet in the cabin too. Now, there's been a ton of work done on insulating this thing, of course, with no engine or no traditional engine generating a kind of background hum. Road noise and wind noise is a bit more obvious, but they've done a really good job here of trying to minimize it as much as possible. So what you are missing, of course, is that kind of engine thrum and all that kind of thing. And Kia's got a kind of curious solution to it. So when you put it in sport mode, it does get a little louder, just not louder in the way you might be expecting. Now, we're going about 85 and 100 zone here, so I'm going to plant my foot and hopefully you can hear what I'm talking about. That kind of Jetson hum in the background that suggests you're doing something a little bit sporty. Now, for fans of sort of traditional ICE engine performance and exhaust rumbles, that takes a little bit of getting used to, but I don't know, I think it's kind of cute. Now, this car, like all Kias, has undergone a local tuning version for its suspension, but this one's been done a little bit differently. COVID kind of prevented them doing it in person, so they've taken to describing it as a tuning program via correspondence, where Kia in Australia and their engineering experts have sent over their requirements to Kia in Korea. They've made the changes and kind of sent the car over. So it wasn't the traditional tuning program, but it works pretty well, to be honest. They seem to have struck a really nice balance between kind of suppleness and sportiness. It's not rock hard, only really rough road imperfections make their way into the cabin, but equally it doesn't feel disconnected from the drive experience either. You do feel a part of it. The only thing that is taking me a moment to get used to is the steering, which doesn't feel super progressive, and I'm not sure if that's because of the weight and size of the vehicle, but it does take a few little mid-corner corrections I've found to try and get the right line, but I'm sure it's something you get used to. Now, it's obviously got some sporty aspirations, this GT line, because along with the regular regen braking, which you adjust via the flappy paddles here, it's also got something called sport braking mode, which doesn't really impact the level of kinetic energy being recouped. It's more to make it feel like a race car or a performance car. So you activate that mode, which you can only do when stopped, so I've done it already for you. And then when you hit the brakes, it really bites. Like, it really bites. It takes a little bit of getting used to. So just something else to play with in the cabin. And I guess that kind of sums this car up, doesn't it? It's somewhere between a properly sporty EV and just a regular, comfortable, capable vehicle. But I gotta say, it straddles that line pretty well. It does both jobs pretty admirably.
Of course, we should point out here that the current EV6 family is really an entree to this vehicle's potential performance. There is another one coming, the GT, and it has some seriously impressive power figures. Think 430 kilowatts and 740 newton meters from its dual motor powertrain, meaning a sprint to 100 kilometers an hour in just 3.5 seconds. Just when it's coming though remains to be seen, but expect it either late this year or sometime in the first half of 2023. The safety story starts here with the usual collection of airbags, including a center airbag, but the Air then adds clever stuff like a reversing camera, AEB, blind spot collision warning with rear cross traffic alert, lane keep assist and lane following assist, multi-collision braking, front and rear parking sensors, active cruise with speed limit assistance, and a tyre pressure monitoring system. The GT line models then build on that again, adding a blind spot view monitor and a 3D surround view camera. There's no ANCAP rating yet, but Kia will adopt the European crash scores in its bid for a 5-star rating here. Have you heard that EVs are cheaper to service than ICE cars? Well, they are. The EV6 is covered by Kia's 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty, with its high voltage bits covered for the same time, but with the kilometres capped at 150,000 kilometres. The battery, by the way, is guaranteed to maintain 70% capacity at the 7-year mark. Servicing costs are pretty impressive, with Kia inviting owners to prepay their maintenance costs for 3 years at $594, 5 years at $1,089, or 7 years for $1,584. And that comes out to around $226 per year.
It's impressive, the EV6, but it's more than that. It's also exciting because it means there's big things ahead in the EV space, and not just for vehicles from Kia and Hyundai, but from all sorts of manufacturers. So if you're still on the fence about EVs, then prepare yourself, because a change or a charge is coming. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit like and subscribe, and be sure to check out carsguide.com.au to get your full motoring fix.